Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I am Deja B. I want to say thank you to my subscribers, and those that have been watching. Today I will be sharing the 5 cult stories. And like always, I will try to post new content 1 to 2 times a week. So, if you're a fan of creepy, scary and history stories, I believe I have it here. With all that said, sit back, relax, and stay away from those dark corners. Thank you.
The People's Temple. The People's Temple, led by Jim Jones, was a religious cult that gained notoriety for the haunting events that unfolded in the late 1970s. The story of the People's Temple is a dark and tragic tale, marked by manipulation, coercion, and ultimately, voluntary mass deletion. Jim Jones, a charismatic preacher, founded the People's Temple in Indianapolis in the 1950s. Over the years, the cult gained followers and moved to California, where it established a commune called Jonestown in Guyana, South America. The temple portrayed itself as a utopian community, promising its members a better life and a sense of purpose. However, behind the facade of harmony lay a deeply troubled organization. Jones used psychological manipulation and fear tactics to control his followers.
He said they've got people in the press. They've got people in every phase of the law enforcement. They own all kinds of land. We've got to destroy them. We've got the witnesses, I tell you. We've got the witnesses. He collaborated with operators. 3 telephone operators in Bell Telephone monitored our phones night and day for 2 months. We've got the witnesses. It's written testimony, and if somebody wants to sue me, then we'll put out a deposition, and we'll have the biggest court case you ever saw in your life. And I don't think Ma Bell wants that, so she'll probably let me have to say what I've got to say. Because she would look pretty bad when 3 of her workers that are supposed to be paid to be putting long-distance calls in are doing nothing more than listening to my Jewish attorney that was healed of cancer here when he was dying, and listening to the assistant district attorney who was a member of my church, and listening to my phone 24 hours a day. And Ken Solving says, we've got to crush them. That's what he said the first day. Said they won't do anything. They're gentle people. But just the week before I said we'd had enough. That's when the change came. It was just the week before. If he'd have come 2 weeks before, he might have had a chance. But I said, I've turned the last cheek of my butt, and there's no more cheeks. I've wore out of cheeks. I said, the next one that bothers us, they better be prepared for a fight. So what happened? We marched ourselves down here to the Hearst Press, the great big capitalist press, the rich man's press, and I mean poor little old people, us poor little old people, black and brown and poor white. We got our placards and we marched around Jericho's walls, and I said, I'm going to meditate that their papers were burned and 240,000 of their newspapers burned down right inside the building. And we marched. I had them down there 98. I had them down there 100. I had them down there in their 80s and 90s, and we didn't stop marching till those editors come down and said, when are you going to stop? We said, we're going to stop when you quit lying on us. And so that night they pulled out Ken Solving's article. If we'd have prayed and got on our knees and said, pray for those that despitefully use you, Ken Solving would have destroyed us. He would have kicked us in the ground. He'd have stomped on us. Our land would be gone now. We would all have been divided. We would have fled because he would have stirred up more wrath. But we said, we've had enough. And now we've said it even further. Take us on any more, and you're going to have more than just a march.
He convinced them that the outside world was dangerous and that he alone held the key to salvation. Members were isolated from their families, and dissent was met with punishment or public humiliation.
December of '75, 90 of us went by plane into Guyana and saw where we were building the community there.
See, they've made progress on the road and leveled it, clearing the 5 miles that you're seeing in the distance, housing complexes that are being built.
What I saw Declaration as being was building a city where we could move and raise our children outside of the oppression and the racism of the United States of America.
When I first went into Jonestown, it was just a footpath in the rainforest. We had Indians in front of us with machetes, and we had Indians behind us with machetes. 300 miles into the jungle, we literally built a city in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of nowhere.
Hello, family. It's such a joy and great pleasure being here because of Father's love. We are trying to make, and we are making, a place of refuge for all of you here. There's nothing at all that I have any holdings there. I do not want to go back in any way, shape, or form to the States. I love it here, and this is the place where all of you are going to be.
As the cult's activities came under scrutiny, Jones moved his followers to the remote settlement of Jonestown. Life in Jonestown was harsh, with members forced to work long hours and endure physical and emotional abuse. Communication with the outside world was restricted, and any attempt to leave was met with severe consequences. The turning point came in November 1978 when Congressman Leo Ryan, along with a group of journalists, visited Jonestown to investigate reports of human rights abuses. Initially, some members expressed a desire to leave with Ryan, but as the delegation prepared to depart, they were ambushed by armed guards loyal to Jones. The ambush resulted in the deaths of Ryan and several others. Fearing retribution from the authorities, Jones gathered his followers and orchestrated a mass suicide event on November 18, 1978.
I want to see you go, though. They can take me and do with me whatever they want to do. I want to see you go. I don't want to see you go through this hell no more. No more, no more, no more. And we're trying. If everybody will relax. The best thing you do to relax, and you will have no problem. You'll have no problem with the thing if you just relax.
He ordered the congregation to drink cyanide-laced fruit punch, leading to the deaths of over 900 people, including children. The haunting events at Jonestown shocked the world and led to increased scrutiny of cults and their leaders. The People's Temple remains a chilling reminder of the dangers of charismatic leaders who exploit the vulnerable and manipulate their followers for personal gain. The tragedy of Jonestown serves as a cautionary tale, urging society to remain vigilant against the manipulation and abuse of power in all its forms.
Religion practices are okay, but being extremist can lead you to drinking the Jones juice.
Synanon, once known as tender loving care. Synanon, initially founded as a drug rehabilitation program in 1958, would later become synonymous with a dark chapter in communal living marked by manipulation, violence, and ultimately, criminal activities. The story begins with Charles Dederich, a charismatic recovering alcoholic who founded Synanon in Santa Monica, California. Initially, the organization aimed to provide a supportive community for individuals struggling with drug and alcohol addiction. The program gained popularity, and Synanon expanded, acquiring properties and transforming into a self-sustaining commune. As the years passed, Synanon's original mission evolved, and the community became increasingly authoritarian under Dederich's leadership. Residents were required to undergo intense group therapy sessions known as the Synanon game, where personal attacks and emotional confrontations were not uncommon. Over time, the organization's focus shifted from rehabilitation to a more controlling and cult-like structure. One of the haunting events that occurred at Synanon was the implementation of the game, which became a tool for manipulation and coercion. Members who questioned the leadership or expressed dissent were subjected to public humiliation and emotional abuse during these sessions. The atmosphere within Synanon turned toxic, as residents lived in constant fear of retribution for breaking the strict rules imposed by Dederich. Charles Dederich claimed children were a bad investment and forced men to have vasectomies and pregnant women to have abortions to lower the compound's energy expenses. In 1978, the dark side of Synanon came to light when a plan to assassinate a lawyer named Paul Morantz, who had been critical of the organization, was uncovered. A member of Synanon had placed a rattlesnake in Morantz's mailbox, resulting in a near-fatal snakebite. This criminal act shocked the public and marked a turning point for Synanon. Subsequent investigations revealed a pattern of violence, intimidation, and criminal behavior within the organization. Authorities intervened, and legal actions were taken against Synanon's leaders. In the early 1980s, Synanon faced financial difficulties, and its communal properties were sold off. The haunting events at Synanon serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the potential for manipulation within communal living arrangements. The organization's dark descent from a well-intentioned rehabilitation program to a violent and authoritarian cult highlights the importance of transparency, accountability, and ethical leadership in any community or organization. Synanon's legacy remains a stark reminder of how seemingly benevolent intentions can be twisted into something far more sinister. The Family. The Family, led by Anne Hamilton-Byrne, unfolds as a chilling narrative of deception, manipulation, and psychological abuse beneath the guise of spiritual enlightenment. Anne, a charismatic yoga teacher, founded the family in Australia during the 1960s. Under her leadership, the group evolved into a cult that blended elements of Eastern mysticism, Christianity, and a distorted version of Hindu philosophy. And proclaimed herself the reincarnation of Jesus Christ and convinced her followers that she held divine authority. The family began innocuously enough, attracting individuals seeking spiritual fulfillment and community. Anne, with her silver hair and piercing blue eyes, exuded an aura of wisdom that drew people in. She adopted children, convincing their parents that they would be raised in an enlightened environment, free from the troubles of the outside world. However, behind the picturesque facade of the family lay a darker reality. Anne used mind control techniques, drugs, and isolation to break down the will of her followers. Children were subjected to physical and emotional abuse, often drugged with LSD as part of Anne's misguided spiritual teachings. The cult's isolationist policies severed ties between members and their families, leaving them entirely dependent on Anne and the family for support and guidance. As the cult expanded, Anne's delusions of grandeur intensified. She claimed that her teachings were the only path to salvation and that she possessed special powers. The cult lived on a rural property called Lake Eildon, where Anne orchestrated bizarre rituals and ceremonies to reinforce her divine authority. The haunting events reached a climax in the 1980s when Australian authorities, tipped off by former members who managed to escape, raided the family's compound. They discovered evidence of child abuse, medical experimentation, and financial fraud. The children, who had been raised within the cult, were rescued from their nightmarish existence. Anne Hamilton-Byrne and some of her accomplices faced legal consequences for their actions, but the scars left on the survivors of the family endured. The story of the family serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of individuals seeking spiritual fulfillment and the potential for abuse when charismatic leaders exploit that vulnerability for their own gain. It underscores the importance of vigilance against manipulation and the protection of those who may fall prey to the dark allure of cults masquerading as paths to enlightenment. The Children of God. The story of the Children of God, founded by David Berg under the initial name Teens for Christ, unfolds as a dark journey marked by religious fervor, manipulation, and the exploitation of vulnerable followers. In the late 1960s, David Berg, a former pastor, established Teens for Christ as a youth outreach ministry. Over time, the organization transformed into the Children of God, a religious cult that blended unconventional interpretations of Christianity with communal living in a free love ideology. Berg's charismatic persona drew in young, idealistic followers who sought spiritual enlightenment and a sense of purpose. The cult embraced communal living, with members often traveling from place to spread their message. Berg preached that the end of the world was imminent, and the Children of God positioned itself as a refuge from the impending apocalypse. However, the idyllic facade of communal living masked a more sinister reality. Berg implemented a practice known as flirty fishing, encouraging female members to use their sexuality to recruit new followers. This led to a disturbing trend of sexual exploitation within the cult. Members were pressured into engaging in sexual activities with outsiders as a means of recruitment, all in the name of Berg's twisted interpretation of love and spiritual outreach. As the children of God expanded globally, reports of child abuse, forced labor, and mind control emerged. Berg justified these actions as necessary for the greater good and in alignment with his distorted religious teachings. Members were discouraged from forming connections outside the cult, and dissent was met with severe consequences. The haunting events within the Children of God reached a tipping point in the 1980s when the group faced increased scrutiny from authorities and the media. Former members began to share their stories of abuse, shedding light on the dark underbelly of the organization. As law enforcement intervened, some members were held accountable for their actions, and the cult underwent various transformations to evade legal repercussions. The Children of God, now known as the Family International, persists in a diminished form today, but the scars of its dark history linger in the lives of those who were once ensnared in its grip. The story of the Children of God serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of charismatic leaders exploiting religious fervor for their own gain. It underscores the need for vigilance against manipulation and abuse within seemingly spiritual communities, urging society to protect the vulnerable from those who would exploit their quest for meaning and belonging. The Anthill Kids. The Anthill Kids, led by Rock Terrio, is a haunting tale of fanaticism, abuse, and the twisted dynamics within a cult that emerged from the fringes of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Rock Terrio, a charismatic but deeply disturbed leader, founded the cult in the 1970s in Quebec, Canada. He blended elements of his own religious interpretations with apocalyptic visions and a patriarchal structure that would come to define the Anthill Kids. Terrio convinced his followers that he held divine authority, portraying himself as a prophet chosen by God. The cult lived in isolation on a rural property, where Terrio's control extended into every aspect of the members' lives. He enforced strict rules, subjected followers to physical and emotional abuse, and conducted bizarre rituals in the name of spiritual purification. Terrio's influence grew, and he demanded absolute loyalty from his followers, whom he referred to as his children. One of the haunting events that unfolded within the Anthill Kids was Terrio's increasing descent into madness. He claimed to have the ability to heal through spiritual means, but his methods included brutal and sadistic acts of violence. Members were subjected to extreme punishments, including beatings, mutilations, and forced amputations, all justified by Terrio as methods of cleansing their souls. As the cult's practices became increasingly disturbing, law enforcement and authorities started to take notice. In 1989, the horrifying truth about the Anthill Kids came to light when a former member managed to escape and reported the atrocities to the police. Authorities raided the cult's compound, uncovering a nightmarish scene of abuse, torture, and manipulation. Rock Terrio was arrested, and he faced charges ranging from assault to murder. The cult's twisted dynamics had led to the death of at least one member, who succumbed to injuries inflicted during a brutal beating. Terrio's trial exposed the dark reality of the Anthill Kids, and he was eventually convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The story of the Anthill Kids serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating consequences of charismatic leaders who exploit their followers. It highlights the need for vigilance against manipulation and abuse within religious or spiritual communities and the importance of holding those who perpetrate such crimes accountable for their actions.
Thank you all for watching, and if you haven't yet, please join the fam and like and subscribe so you will never miss any of my newly uploaded videos. Thanks.